stay human. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Scaling AI and offshoring model, fairly straightforward topic. I'm sure that you would have gone through so many PPTs and stuff on the internet. So we'll talk about what is scale agile, what exactly it means in the offshoring context, some of the challenges that come as part and parcel of the framework. They are embedded into the framework, they are inherent to it, and some of the challenges we create for ourselves. Induced or I would say self-created. And then we'll talk about some of the suggestions, some of the methods, techniques that have worked in the past, things that you would carry in your workplace and see if they work for you, and some key takeaways of this session. What is scale agile? Well, this was the simplest definition I can come for scale agile. Scale agile is just a way to magnify the benefits of agile from an agile team or to an enterprise level. Now the keywords here are basically magnify and the benefits. Magnify because everything you have at the fundamental level, whether you have dysfunctions or you have team spirit or you have a very hardcore adherence to Scrum values, you magnify it and you get it at the enterprise level. What it also means for us is that before we really magnify it, it's important for us to set the fundamentals right. We don't set the fundamentals right and we try to magnify it, we know what's going to happen. There's so many organizations who have implemented scale agile in multiple ways. Save, Nexus, less, dad, father, mother, I don't know. But then the main reason is that if you do not have the fundamentals right, you don't take care of the mindset, the agile culture, the learning values and all those things, you don't have it right there, and then you magnify it and what comes is disaster. Especially in offshore context, scale agile for me would be, well, we normally do it because it has a cost arbitrage. We are cheaper workers in India, so it definitely gives leverage for the people at offshore to send business to us. It also offers, when you offshore it to locations like India, Philippines, and Mexico, it gives us a chance to have a round-the-clock delivery. You have an onshore team, by the time they end their work, it is the right time for the offshore team to really take over. So there is a round-the-clock delivery that starts happening. And then there is a skill balance that gets spread across the multiple geographies or the multi-sites. Let's talk about some of the inherent challenges with offshore scale agile. Absence of the common sense of purpose. I think we'll all relate to it at some point of time or the other. You would have been part of discussions, calls, conference calls, televisions, where stuff is happening at the onshore and we're completely out of sync with it. People are laughing there and we don't even know what's happening. We don't understand, we don't relate to the things that are being talked about there, we don't relate to the businesses, we don't understand, the chemistry that's happening between the people, and we're totally left aloof, isn't it? So the basic reason there is that even before we start with the project launch, even before we start with anything, it's important for us that there is a sense of binding of the team. You don't do it, and the only benefit you have is that there is a bunch of individuals who have been brought together to work upon a project. But so far as you actually have them bind or bound them together in a common sense of purpose, that you've got to spend sufficient time there, but if you don't do it, the cost is a lot further. What you have is that the performance model, I think we all know about it, but then how well do we really follow it? How well do we really apply it into our day-to-day, work? Forming, norming, storming. What we normally do is that managers out of there, and I've done it in the past, out of our sheer desire, and exhilaration and that hunger to start the project a little earlier, we don't take the team to the subsequent steps of performance model. We launch the project during the start itself. What happens? Now you've got two parallel layers to take care of. You've got the team fighting on one side, and then you've got the project deadlines to meet. As part of that feeling that would be to first bring the team to a level where they are at least bound by a common sense of purpose. There is a norming phase that has really happened. Team at established sense of communication amongst the people, and there is a greater sense of purpose towards the delivery towards the project. Once we have that, then you launch the project. It's going to be a lot easier. You'll have a lot more lesser challenges to deal with once you've already started. Yeah. Team is not familiar with each other. Normally happens. I've been part of teams where I don't know who Jack was. I didn't know. There were times when I don't remember the name, but almost for all the project, entire project, I thought that person I was talking to was, or I was dropping emails to, was a man. It turned out that she was actually a lady. It happens with most of us. Yeah. So the challenge is that, and the benefits of creating the familiarity amongst the team is that there are established communication channels when the project has already started. So it becomes a lot easier for the team to coordinate with each other. It becomes easier for the team to reach out to people for help. So you don't rely upon emails and all those things. If you want to really have the team follow individuals and interactions, it's important to establish the communication channels. It's important to include those small time chats in all the calls that we have. You obviously feel a lot more comfortable being in calls where people talk about weathers, not just weathers, but about the children, about the schooling, some you crack jokes, and immediately the tone coldness and the frostiness in the environment is totally gone. So it's important to invest that much of time in bringing the familiarity in the people. People should be comfortable reaching out to people. Logistical challenges. However simple and innocuous it might seem, but then I've been part of release planning events where we were running here and there for post-its. Innocuous as it might seem, but then imagine that there are 100, 120 odd people who are taking part in the release planning event, and then people are sharing post-its and then they're like giving 2, 3, and there's a rationing which is happening with this. Simple thing, post-its, and the amount of havoc that it created. And I've actually seen a lot of coaches, especially the diligent ones, spend near about 5 to 6 hours a day prior to the release planning events into the room. They set up the tables, they set up the chairs, they take care of all the logistic things. They take care that the chart papers are there, the post-its, even the flags. Let's say you have 100, 120 odd people taking part in an RPE, and somebody needs the attention of a product owner, or they perhaps need the help of a coach. Are they going to shout? So a good way is to raise the flags, but then the flags have to be there. Otherwise, what will happen is, it's going to be chaos. People will be shouting, screaming, and there will be people who will be waiting for attention, and then at the same time, the timers is not going to be set. You'll have people who will have unfinished discussions, you'll have people who will not have, reached out to all the people, and then there's going to be chaos everywhere. So the logistical challenges are extremely important. You talk of offshoring model, it's all the more important that the telepresence and conference calls and all those things are right there in place, because it can really frustrate people. I've been in teams where the bandwidth didn't really support, the conference calls with a video element to be there. As a result of that, I would see that while there were people who were talking very, very energetically from one side, and then there was a separate bunch who had switched out their video cams, and then they were busy playing video games, and they were simply not interested. And they banned upon their relationships with their onshore counterparts to explain to them what really happened. So these kinds of things really happen. It's important for us to ensure that the infrastructure is good enough to support the fundamental theory that takes us forward the scaling that. Time zones. Well, oceans across, and then imagine you working for a United States client, somebody like that. And then somebody has to start early or somebody has to start late for the RP to really happen. How do we really do it? Because somebody has to sacrifice. And that's where the teamship, the sense of teamship comes into picture. People have got to be willing to sacrifice. If that does not happen, what will happen is that the offshore team will, one event after the other, they'll keep coming in the evenings, and it's going to frustrate them to a great extent. And then, because the biology class also don't really support that. Imagine waking up till 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the night. What is going to be the level of attention for you? And it goes a long way in securing that team trust if you have the onshore team also making a level of sacrifice. So I've been a part of the teams where what we used to do was that we used to alternate with time zones. Let's say today we have the offshore team who's into sprint, it's actually the onshore team which comes in early. So that way, the two ways sacrifice that really happened, it went a long way securing that, sense of teamship and we were comfortable working with each other. Overlap times, handoffs. Well, I don't really like the word handoffs. I like the word handshakes because handoffs, what it seems to me is that you just hand it off and then you're done. That's the end of your responsibility. I would rather call it as a handshake because you shake hand and you pass on the burden to the next person. Time boxing because the level of attention. I've seen people actually dozing off and not really being at the prime of their attentiveness after 12 o'clock. Let's say you have a midnight snack and imagine what will happen after that. You'll have other people, dozing off, somebody is kind of falling down. All these things happen, right? Economic consideration. Well, this is extremely nicely put way of our friendship and our, shall I say, we're totally, that's the party, that's the driving force, what is called as a billing rates. Anybody who has been a manager in their career would understand the importance of it. Billing is the only thing that we run after. All the efforts are towards increasing the billing so that we can increase the profit margins. That's what we are concerned about. What happens is it becomes a lot more easier to get in Agile because what we normally do is that it's essentially empirical, right? And our focus is not towards delivering stuff at the end of the hour. Our focus is more towards increasing the billing. What we normally do is that we start by committing X amount, and by the time the hour ends, we have only delivered X by 2. And then if it happens on a hour by hour basis, that's when you've got a pattern emerging out and you're not really bound by the same sense of purpose. There is no sense of urgency. People have different agendas behind it. So you've got to look into those things. These are certain things that really come along with when you do a scale Agile and offshoring. Offshoring for the accountability team spirit. I've seen teams where the onshore developers or product owners or subject matter experts weren't really comfortable sharing their stuff with the offshore people. So there have been teams, only a couple of weeks back I met a developer who was facing a tough time dealing with a developer out there in the US who was not willing to share the information. And he was picking mistakes, he was picking challenges, and he was highlighting those things in a manner as if the offshore team is simply not capable of doing this stuff. So these kind of things really happen. And all these things, these are fundamental challenges. They get all the more magnified, the impact is a lot more boisterous, a lot more evident when you do it at a scale Agile level. Imagine these kind of challenges happening between two folks. And then you magnify it by 60 times, 122. Imagine the impact it has. Offshore culture not really aligned with the fundamental Agile values. We all understand Agile talks about transparency, quality, courage, all these things. But how many of our managers are really comfortable with the Agile team? How many of us are really comfortable with a team which is open to, voice their thoughts? Do we not really feel insecure about that? There are people who work in a typical command and control center, and if they come across people who are very, very open, they come across people who talk whatever they have in their thoughts, and they see it as a threat, and they try to minimize it. So it's important that we select the vendors in such a way who kind of align with the Agile values. Because you have art on one side running at onshore, and you've got a typical V or a waterfall model working at offshore. Those two, they don't really work with each other. It's bound to fail. Lack of two-way communication, especially through RPs. I'm sure that all of us would have been through not just RPs, but then all meetings, discussions, where there are continuous monologues by, vertical lines and big shots. You give them the mic, you tell them that it's a 15-minute slot, you ask them to talk about the product vision, what do you want and what are the benefits, and you end it in 15 minutes, and because they are the vertical heads, they take half an hour. And all they talk about is bullshit. Such a solidarity, such a monologue that people don't really relate to it. People start picking their, nails, and that's what they start doing. So it's important that even before you start with the RP, it's important that you convey to the vertical heads of whoever is taking part in those RP events that the discussion has to be two-way. You've got to identify mechanisms through which there is a two-way validation that's happening between the communication. So let's say I'm interacting with you. It shouldn't really be that I talk and then you, at the end of it, you say that yeah, I kind of got it. How much have you got it? It's anybody's guess. It's important for me to seek that validation. It doesn't have to be a question and answer session with 30 people, but at the same time, you've got to intersperse your communication with questions, with validations. Are we all on the same page? Do we all get it? And see if there are any questions around. Unless and until we have that two-way communication, you'll only talk. Focus would only be on talking. It will not be on ensuring that the people out there are really getting your message. Anything else that you think could be here? Anything that you think that comes along with the package of Scale, Agile and Offshoring? Something that I could add here?
Yeah. I mean, to add to one of the points, a common practice is company A gets a project from company B, and in turn hires a company C as vendor. In such scenarios, the company C team is very scared to come up with their ideas, because their appraisal in turn depends on companies B inputs to their managers or leadership. So it's, even though they can have a common sense of purpose, they might not be very open to voice their opinions in such a case. So I think one of the points, just to add to one of the points.
Sure, excellent point. It will actually get covered in the next one.
Okay.
So these are the inherent challenges. Excellent point, because but then it covers in the next one. I'll talk about it. Yeah.
One of the points we spoke about offshoring and teams having challenges communicating with each other. Considering we are talking only about 2 locations, magnify it by like 10 locations. So what would you suggest would be your best approach to bring together the teams so that they open up to each other and be warm when they are working together? So how would you suggest what approach should they employ here to make them work together?
Sure. Let's hold on to that part. We will talk about it in just a couple of minutes from now. Sure, we will talk about it. Anything else?
Maybe the language difference in the Bangalore's, we have Bangalore differences.
Yeah.
Understanding of the
Cultural challenges. Yeah. Like the Indians, like we do. Yes for us is actually no. Or partially yes. Can we do like that? Cultural challenges. Yeah. A lot of times, yeah. For a lot of us, this is yes.
Yes. Yes, no, or maybe it can be anything.
And I think we're culturally scared to say a no.
Yeah, exactly. Because what happens is whenever offshore and on-site have a collaborative talk, generally what we say, whatever requirements comes in, we say yes. The low point is what we, that's a challenge always. Yeah. And we feel that if we say no to a client or something, then it might have an impact.
So when we say no, we'll end up putting another 2 or 3 hours of meeting to convert us into yes.
Yeah, because a lot of us, I mean, it's not just between onshore and offshore, but what I see is that a lot of us who are used to using our executive power to literally bully people into saying a yes. So we do that. There have been times where I myself have found myself in discussions on both sides of the table, where when the person was not really saying yes, and I used all my force, whatever I could, to make him say yes. And then after that, I held him accountable for it. I held him by the ground of his neck, and every time he was not able to complete his work, you said yes. And that poor soul, he did not have the courage to go back to me and say, Abhishek, you actually doing me. So all these things that do happen, they come under cultural challenges. We talk about it. Anything else that? Anything else that anyone wants to share?
So I think it depends on the person who you can convince the other party why he is saying. So I have never found it as a challenge in my entire career, saying a no to a person, explaining him why I am doing that.
Maybe you got to work with me then.
I would love to.
No, I think even before you come up with negotiation, even before you try to convince people otherwise, you've got to understand the people, because let's say I'm saying something and you try to convince me otherwise, there are a lot of things that come into play. One is that itself is extremely hurting, and it can actually, that becomes the goading factor, that becomes a driving factor for so many people. Have you not encountered people where discussions they go on for hours and hours together simply because a person is not willing to accept that he is wrong?
Basically, it boils down to vulnerability in the
Absolutely. Trust, courage, and I would say the familiarity within the team. If you are comfortable with a person, at least the window is a little wider. But then if you are talking to a person on the street and you tell him that the way you are driving is actually wrong, he's going to smash it, right? But then of course, it doesn't mean that you've got to build a relationship with that person on the road and then you tell him that he's driving wrong. You've got to take them on the street, pass the police and all. But then in times of software development, when we are dealing with our team, I think it's important that we spend sufficient time. The managers or the leaders, the sponsors are to be visionary enough to spend time into building that team spirit amongst the people. So far as you don't have it, all these challenges are going to manifest themselves in too many ways. You'll have one section of the people who are very oppressed, that Garib Janta is never, somebody is making decisions for them and it's only being there, only following it. So many challenges will come. And the root cause of all of it is that we didn't have sufficient trust, we didn't have sufficient courage in the people to speak. Isn't it? Shall we move ahead? In these challenges, trust sunset. This is the first one here. You don't have trust and you don't believe what the other person is saying. If I'm convinced that you are out there to only slaughter me, you are out there to only usurp my power, challenge me, threaten me, make a public spectacle out of me, in front of the team, I will never listen to you. Which is why the management adage says that you never give feedback in public. Why is it so? Because the public retreat is always more difficult than a private retreat. You give a constructive feedback to a person in public and 9 out of 10 chances are that he is not going to accept it. Because that public image, that fear of retribution, your own aura that you have around yourself, it's too much to give. So it's important that you have the fundamental trust there. You've got a bunch of people who trust each other. You've got a bunch of people who are comfortable sharing the details with each other. If you don't have it, you're going to hide your statuses, you're going to not raise the alert at the right time, you'll not be comfortable reaching out to people if you really need help. You're going to hide a lot of things. And it is eventually going to end into surprises at the release date. Right when the sprint is ending and you realize that a particular thing has not been done or it has been partially done. You keep hiding stuff, you keep applying bandages on top of it. So trust is extremely important. Which is why I've become even more fan of the Tuckman's model. Cultural insensitivity. If I have to say it in one line, I would say that the Christmas is more important than Diwali. Yeah. So there was this time where I was looking for a project, and my onshore folks, they asked me, the lady, that you got to have the entire team coming on the weekend, you've got so much to cover and this and that and everything. Although there was a lot of things that were dependent upon her, but she wanted the onshore team to be on the weekend. So I asked, are you going to come? And she said, no. My son has got a basketball game. So these kind of things, they happen. It is actually those cultural things that come into that picture when you are coming up with projects like these. You've got to set the expectations right from the onshore as well as from the offshore. That blood commitment, that concept of chicken is actually from both sides. It's applicable from both sides. So far as you feel that there is a handoff which is happening from the offshore is my delivery team and the onshore is actually the client folks. So far as you work in that mindset, Agile is not really going to work. Whatever amount of ceremonies you have, whatever amount of artifacts and mindset and all those things you bring in, but so far as that mindset is there, then onshore is the client and offshore is actually a delivery team, it's not really going to work. Now it is important for the leaders to actually set it right. Behavior, like you said, it comes from the top. Cultural changes, they come from the top, and it comes by demonstration. I can't really go to a particular company and say that this is the right culture for us to follow. You've got to demonstrate it. Show it to them that this is how it's done and this really works. Till the time you do it, people will not have that confidence upon the culture. They will not believe the genuinity of the change that is being undertaken. So the leaders have got to lead here by demonstrating the right behavior. Lack of visibility across the fence.
We do not know what's happening.
Yeah.
No transparency.
What could we do about it? So if I have to do something about the statement, what would I do?
Communication.
Communication. What else? Can I add effective communication?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Showcasing of the achievements in the leadership and the other forums wherein it is visible that team. With
Transparency,
some ceremonies anyways it is very much visible. What is being achieved, what is there in the backlog, and all these things are pretty much visible. The lack of visibility only happens when there is ceremonies are not being followed.
Readiness to present, readiness to listen, meaning that it should be, like, willing to present what the other people.
So if I have, like a rephrase my question, if I have to do something about the statement, what's written here, lack of visibility across the fence, what would you want me to do?
Don't have any kind of fence.
Awesome. Awesome. You're going to remove the fence, and that is it. The visibility automatically gets taken care of. You remove the fence and everything is in place. Right? You work on visibility, you come up with all the fancy information radiators, you come up with calls, discussions, everything. It will not work. So far as the concept of fence is there. You remove the fence and everything is in place. Sense of teamship. The onshore team, like I just talked about, the onshore team very comfortably, they assume as if they are the real clients, and then the offshore team are the other, right, Janta. And then you've got to do what has been told to you. The moment you start doing it, you're not allowed. It has been happening so long, right? Reward and recognition which is inconsistent with agile values. I think traditionally, a lot of things have really been going wrong. While we talk about team spirit, we talk about collaboration, we talk about reaching out to people, helping each other, all these things. But then we have a basic reward and recognition system which is resting upon competition. There's only so much to offer. There's only this big of pie. Who can get a bigger slice of the pie? And the moment you bring that, and that's where competition comes in. That's when the pushing, shoving, throwing the other person under the train, all these things they happen. So you've got to have that reward and recognition system which is consistent with agile values. You've got to have that, what I call it, or what I read as a theory of abundance. That there is plenty for everybody. You do your stuff and don't worry. You don't have to push people down to get what you really deserve. You've got to have a reward and recognition system which promotes positive behaviors, promotes collaboration. Till the time you have, and what we have been doing so far is actually promoting other ways. We have competition, we promote all bootlicking, we promote our reward and recognition system. Traditionally, it has promoted every other thing except collaboration and team spirit. And while we talk about team spirit, while we talk about the let's start it for our folks, we've got to pause for a moment and look at the reward and recognition system which we have. And we can't really recreate the importance of reward and recognition. Right? You all know it. I do it. Fear of conflict, team dysfunctions. I think it goes back to trust. If I really trust my people, I'll be comfortable giving them a feedback, which I will be getting from my team after this. And if I'm scared of them, if I'm worried, if I have this feeling that there is something sinister behind a feedback that is being shared to me, and that there is some game plan which is being set for me by giving me repeated feedback, throwing me into unfamiliar situations, then I'm going to, build a bunker around myself. And that's where the other person is start going to do. And then you won't have a team, you'll have a group of individuals who will have bunkers around them. Anybody's guess if it's going to be successful or not. We all know. Offshore management was unsure of their responsibilities. So till recently, I myself was in a management board, and I found myself amidst agile team, agile company. Well, they call themselves agile compliant. I don't know what they hired me for, because I worked there for about 4 or 5 months and I had no clue what I was doing there. The product was actually being taken care of by the product owner. The team's challenges and all those things were getting taken care of by the Scrum Master. And then we also had leads and all those things. But then I was there working with 85 people. I hardly had anything to do. So that's where I found to work for myself. I started doing in other areas. some of the questions that came in your presentation as well, that how do the management roles they really transform into or they transition into some of the Scrum roles that we have. So we've got to look at what are the temperament of those folks. We've got to identify what is the natural bent of mind. Do they want to go into an area which is more product line, subject matter expertise, those kind of things, or are they people centric? Or are they hardcore command and control? Command and control is not going to work anymore. I think we are all looking at the generation Z that is coming up. Do they even listen to us? They don't. My son doesn't listen to me. And if I look at him sternly, he looks back at me. I think it will be happening with most of us here. So this team, this generation which is coming up, Agile is not, waterfall is not going to work with them. We've got to have Scrum in our houses also. Isn't it? At least the wife is not going to accept it. So it's important for us, coming back to it, it's important for us to look at, reflect upon some of the traditional project management roles we have and how can they transition into some of the roles that Agile or the scale Agile is they know. And they've got to work themselves there. We've got to help them achieve those goals. At the same time, we've got to help them make the right decisions. Some of them feel that, I think Scrum Master is good, I should be to be. But do you really have a natural bent of mind? Are you technically or you are temperamentally inclined towards that? What if you really make a Scrum Master, a person who works hardcore into command and control, and he assumes the responsibility, the accountability of the delivery happening from the team, and as a Scrum Master, he ensures that as part of the daily Scrum, he goes in there and he takes an update from every single person. Would you want to have a Scrum Master like that? So you've got to look at the natural bent of mind, you've got to look at the temperament of it. People ask what is essential for a Scrum Master or an Agile coach to succeed. The way I see it, I think it's the temperament. You don't have the right temperament, you have all the certifications under your name, you've got all the knowledge, you've read thousands of books. So far as you don't have the right temperament to connect with the people, you don't have you don't have a way of talking which people can relate to. These two roles at least not going to work. You've got to look at something just like that. So temperament is extremely important. Motivation to challenge status quo, I think most of us, my own self, at some point of time in my career, I was happy with what I was being told to do. Because I was a part of a team where we were 5 people, and it was one of the biggest companies in the world. We had 12 test cases, and we had 3 months to complete. 5 people. And I was happy to do it. Because by all the estimations, all the generous estimations, eventually what I really needed was just an hour, spread over 3 months, 5 people. And I was happy to do it, right? Because I had the time to, spend time with my friends, and I could have multiple tea sessions, and I could discuss about politics, and all those things. So the drive has to be from within. You've got to have the hiring which is consistent with the Agile values. You've got to hire the right people. You've got to have, you don't need to have people who have got technical, abilities or they know the latest technologies and all. The way I see it, it's extremely important that you hire people with the right set of mind. They should have a hunger to do something. They should have that desire to change something. They would want their work to actually make a difference to people's lives. And if you have people like these, you can teach them any technology, any domain, anything. They'll scale up extremely fast. So hire is extremely important here. So this motivation to challenge status quo, I think a lot of it also comes back to our own lack of courage to challenge. A lot of us feel that if I challenge it, if I question, will I be, worked against? Will I be put into a dock and I would be made responsible for 1,000 action items and all that? So that fear of conflict also plays a role here. But then you've got to identify people who are not comfortable with status quo, who are willing to make changes, who are willing to take things into their control and actually walk the path. Any questions here? Any thoughts I would like to share? Am I going too fast? Too slow? Or is it too... You don't understand even the word that you're saying? Very good. Is it fine?
In these functions, we touched upon trust and fear of conflict. Are there any additional these functions as well?
There are 5. Lencioni was one that, Patrick Lencioni. He talks of, so there is a pyramid that you can find on Google. I think it all starts from absence of trust, and then fear of conflict, accountability and all those things.
Lack of motivation, absence of accountability.
So I'm extremely bad at remembering all these things, although my job demands. But then I'm allowed to rely upon Google and all that. You can do a search on Google and it will come up, 5 dysfunctions. And there are multiple ways of dealing with those and all that.
Will you be sharing the slide with us?
I don't know, the organizers. Yeah, I guess so. Will there be a copyright problem?
Yeah, slides along with the videos.
And after the event, in the slideshare and YouTube, it will be available. All the presentations.
You can choose to use it wherever you want. Some of the things that I've worked in the past, like I said, I've been on both sides of table. I've been part of extremely horrible, completely horrendous, deplorable mechanisms or implementations of scale agile. And then I've been part of some amazing transformations also. The way I see it, if you have multi-site delivery teams working on agile release trains, then it's extremely important that you cross-pollinate people. So there might be, can I have the next please? So there might be areas where you might want to deliberately distribute the teams to, take advantage, to leverage the benefits coming out of multi-site. But at the same time, you've got to cross-pollinate people. So recently I came across a challenge where the parent organization was running agile release trains, but some of the vendors that they had outsourced their work to, they didn't really believe in agile, or perhaps they didn't really follow it. And as a result of it, while all the commitments and blood commitments and situations were explained to people, there wasn't a common sense of purpose, there wasn't a sense of urgency that was shared across locations. And as a result of that, those vendors would actually come back to us and say that, just a couple of days before the demo, they would say that you're going to take at least 2 more months. We have faced this kind of challenge, this happened, that happened, we will not be able to meet it. As a result of it, I have seen arts in itself being failed. The entire effort of 3 to 4 months, 3 months, of at least 120 or 25 people, it was all failed because of the vendors not really being compliant or not comfortable with the art of the agile practice. So what we started doing was, we did everything. We tried to cancel the comments, we did everything under the book. None of it worked. So what we started doing was that we started scaling some people who were from art into those locations, along with those teams. And those days did an amazing job in actually explaining to people what is the sense of urgency. And they also helped in maintaining the transparency in these statuses, and we were able to do it. So the cross-pollination can happen from both sides. So one of the roles, like I was saying, I was hired as a manager. So some of the roles that I picked up, one of that was as a proxy RT. So we had 20 people in US, Colorado, and while they ran their own release planning events, I would basically ensure that the events were also synchronized out here in offshore, and that's how we were able to ensure the same. This is something we can do. Some of the times we can also ensure, because of the limited overlap period that we have, we can also have proxy POs series up here in all offshore teams, and we've got to invest also in ensuring that the POs are scaled up. And we also have to ensure that the PO, the real PO, they only focus their energies upon these strategic decisions and start cultivating that habit of ensuring that the proxy PO takes the tactical decisions. The moment you see that while there is a proxy PO, but then the real PO is actually overruling it, one after the other, repeatedly, that's a challenge there. Either he doesn't want to delegate the responsibility, or he has extremely high standards, or there is something there, but then you've got to do those things also. So the proxy PO should feel empowered enough to actually take decisions and be comfortable with the fact that, I'll go back to my PO and I'll ensure that this decision is not really over. It can be a chaos if the proxy PO says something, and after a while when you go back to the real PO and he completely overrules everything, scratch it all. It's nonsense. You don't want it. The next time the proxy PO is not to feel empowered or comfortable enough to share, to really take a decision. The whole exercise of having the proxy PO is going to waste. Continuous coaching. The way I see it, onshore team has a different nomenclature, coding standards, different set of principles that we follow, and we have our own. We have names and all those things here. So it's important, and it's not just technical, it's also about Scrum values and all. about process, about scale jump, it's important that the coaching happens on both sides. It's important that people on both sides of the Pacific Ocean, shall I say, should be at the same level with respect to their understanding of not just the project, but also what standards have to be followed, what the technologies, and the process. If you don't do it, well, the flip side of it, the way I see it, is that there's going to be increased dependence. There's going to be a lot of rework. Imagine an offshore team really doing a lot of stuff, and then it goes back to the onshore team because they have a very high standard of working. They're going to overrule everything, or they're going to suggest so many improvements. Work on this, and every time we're going to do those reworks. We can't really achieve our goals if we keep on doing these kind of things. So it's important that both the teams are really on the same standard. Simple as it seems, the planning for the entire team should involve the entire team. Normally it doesn't happen. You've got RTs and POs and the market guys and the sponsors sitting out there on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. They take the decisions, they run the shows, they run their events, and the offshore team is completely clueless. They don't really know what is the, what are the goals, what are the urgency, what is the time to market, what is the business criticality, we don't know it. How would we really align ourselves to the project goals so far as it has really been communicated to us? And at the same time ensure that it's really validated that the message has really been nailed into our heads. Well, joint planning sessions and retrospectives. It's important that the RP events or the retrospectives, so that the transparency there, it should not happen, because I have seen it. The team was extremely miffed with the POs, but they didn't have the courage to speak it out. So what they did was that they had a little private PO, private retrospective in their cafeteria, and they came up with the M1. So 10 points that the PO should actually change. But then, when they came to me, I said that let's have a joint discussion with the people, and that's where people were not comfortable sharing their feedback with the PO. I could do it, but then is that a sustainable solution? I mean, would you really want to have a team which lacks the courage to give up a feedback? So that again, it all goes back to trust. If the team was comfortable enough, they would have really been comfortable to share the feedback, their expectations from the PO. And the PO could be held accountable to ensure that those things were really getting met. Comfortable overalls, like I said, that we would alternate between US and India. One sprint we would stay late, the other sprint they would come early. Remote pairing, co-located meetings. So this RP event that I was a part of, and because there were a lot of team challenges, a lot of dysfunctions in the team. So what really happened was that everybody would actually take calls from their respective workstations, and it would crash the department. As a result of it, these are smart people. So we had to switch off the webcams. The moment they switched the webcams, they were nowhere to be found. How could you really track 150 people? So you've got to ensure that you get into a room so that you can also see the expressions and grimaces of people. Handshakes are not handoffs. Electronic progress boards. I think it goes a great way in ensuring that there is a transparency across both sides. Face-to-face interaction through televisions, webcams, video calls. Include time for little small chat, like I said. You just don't have to talk about the responded weather, but then you also have got to create that intimacy in people. This might also involve that there is some travel across locations so that people are comfortable reaching out to people, and there is a familiarity, there is a sense of kinship with people. Bring in the culture of owning up mistakes. I think this is extremely important. I kept it for the last. And how we really do, however easy it seems. But then the leader has to come forward and say that, boss, this is the decision I took, I messed up, I fucked up, I apologize, these are the steps I'm taking to ensure that it doesn't happen again. You don't have to teach people that structure. The moment you exhibit it yourself, the leader does it, and then the message goes as strongly as it can to the rest of the folks. Everybody understands what is the culture of this organization or of this team, and they're going to abide by it. Right? Takeaways. Now that I have only 5 minutes, I'll pass. Make sure that the room and logistics are ready for RP and other planning events. Yeah. Like I said, one of the coaches that I know, he would spend 5 to 6 hours on the previous day to ensure that everything was in place. Tables, chairs, post-it, flags, flip charts, the program board. ensure that the speakers are aware of what they have to do, what is the expectation from them, and what are the tips and tricks to do it. Also ensure that the retrospective items of the previous RP events were actually followed, they were actioned upon. Yeah, the product backlog means nothing irritates people. Imagine that you've got 150 people in a room and your product backlog lacks the level of standard that it's supposed to have. Imagine that the requirements are fuzzy and there is a lot of clarification that is expected from the product owners. Events are synchronized, yeah. So, like I said, I have been part of events where the onshore team had their own pace, they were going in a particular direction, and out here, we were completely loose. We didn't know what was being discussed, we could not relate to it, and then we banked upon our own personal relationships with some of the onshore counterparts we have, and then they would explain to us later. And then afterwards, when we got more details about these discussions or the decisions, we understood that they were actually contrary to what we wanted. A way to get around that problem or to circumvent that problem is that we should have actively participated in it. So what is also required to participate in all that is that there has to be a will to participate, and then the technological infrastructure should support us to participate in it, isn't it? As a coach, you've got to look at if there is a less participation from a particular site, you've got to ensure that there is feedback that's coming from there. Value each feedback. Some of us, what we do is that, it happens even during planning focus. You come up with a requirement, you discuss about it, and one person says 8, and the other person looks at that. I think he's saying 8, I'll put it as 5, and then people bully against the other person. What if the person who is actually on the minority side is actually right, and he's thinking of things which nobody else is thinking about? So we've got to do away with this concept of majority. We've got to understand that consensus has to be there. It doesn't have to be the majority. It has to be, I'll just take a minute. It has to be a consensus amongst people. Ensure that the quiet ones speak. Normally what happens is the people who are more loquacious, who are more boisterous, they just bully their way. Right? I think this is good. And then everybody follows it. That should not happen. As a coach, you should look at, you should ensure that the quiet ones also get a chance to speak. Do remember to ask people their vote of confidence, yeah. So what I used to do was, like, South was kind of a sale, and you can actually do a fist of fine voting on the plan that they have created, and based on that you will be able to research whether the team is confident in one of meeting those objectives or not. Celebrate small successes, yeah, make results, and build upon the momentum. Conduct retrospectives and learn from them. Somebody asked me how do you do an effective retrospective? Well, the answer that I gave was that whatever items we discuss in retrospectives, action upon it. That's the way of doing an effective retrospective. There's no other. You can come up with speedboards and cricket and this and that and all those things, but then it all boils down to what is the step that you take to ensure that those action items are really actionable. So far as you come up with a huge list of feedback you want to change, but then if you don't do anything about it, you don't make any progress about it, people are not going to be, they lose their faith in organizations. Take the fundamentals, right? Engineering practices, Scrum Bangalore, all these things. Till the time you have these things in place, you cannot really magnify it at the enterprise level. Oh, okay. Questions? Yes.
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
The earlier question still stands unanswered. If you are dealing with 10 locations and you are dealing with multiple Scrum teams, how do you bring that visibility or an environment which can help people open up to each other about it? Second part of my question is about the visibility. I am a product owner for my company, and there are multiple product owners with different line of work into multiple Scrum teams. Now what happens is, this is a practical example that I have seen. In one team, the product owner was very keen about looking at the burn down charts and things like that, which led to a very big trouble into our Scrum team because everybody was picking up the smaller items first and they were willing to burn the efforts more. Whereas they should have looked at the bigger items first because they were the key deliverables which will give a definition of ready to implement products. So this happened, and after which we had to literally stop seeing the burn down charts. team burnouts were there, but the individual burnouts just stopped totally program.
But then why did we have individual burnouts in the first place?
They
We shouldn't really have it, right?
They were there in the product. I mean, if you
That's
know
what created
Jira
the
and
challenge.
Confluence, so I'm talking about one product owner who did that, because of which individuals started burning down the smaller stories and things like that. So if these kind of challenges are faced by the teams, how do we overcome? What is the approach that we should take to keep them motivated enough to not only look at their individual chart but also for the product?
Let me try the best way I know. To answer your first question, to ensure that the team is comfortable across multiple locations, I think cross-pollination is required, traveling is required. Then you've got to create that culture, and that culture will be created by way of behavior. You've got to exhibit that behavior in your own self. The leaders have got to conduct themselves in such a way that the teams feel equal. There is an egalitarian feeling amongst the people around. So far as you don't have it, there's going to be a lot of challenges. One team will be left out of press and all those things will happen. Yeah. So that is one thing. To answer your second question, individual burnouts, the way I see it, it shouldn't really be there first place. Secondly, if the PO is repeatedly is almost focused about the burnouts, I think there is a coaching opportunity for a PO there. And then you cannot really motivate the team so far as you actually coach the PO and then bring him to a level. You've got to, but at the same time, you've got to look at what is it that we need encouraging, or shall I say, goading the PO to look at the burnout. It could be that the PO does not really have a trust upon the team. He doesn't feel that, that the estimation that the team is giving is actually right. He might be feeling that the estimations are bloated. Or he might be feeling that there isn't sufficient value that is being generated. Maybe he himself is totally new to a product that is Scrum Bangalore. The concept of value is such an abstract concept. Two things that I see most difficult to understand. One is value. The second is simplicity. What we do is the story points and all. Very, very misused, abused, and I would feel that hardly 5% would actually know about it. Really.
So my follow-up question to this explanation would be, in this situation when you're faced with this doubt in your mind, as a PO, I also personally feel that team at times broke the estimates.
Yeah.
So at this point of time, how do you deal with the situation so that you are on your schedule as well as the team is also happy to?
कान के पता दो लगाने
That is a tricky one.
That will work. It works. It always works.
When the people are speaking to each other stories, right, either he's not in line with the value of the story. There may be small stories. I'm not sure the value of what is getting. So that's why you
No, the priorities were done properly. So the high priority urgent items were on top of the product pattern. What the team was trying to do was, there were some new people into the team. Because of this, the estimates bloated up. And that is the reason we as product owners, we lost faith on.
Were you one of those product owners? Were you one of those product owners who did all this?
There was a clinic. Still is.
In fact, what would have happened was that
No. But the value should be high. I have no idea.
There has to be something which is specializing in
So the bloating happened because there were some new people in here who were the team.
Then the team is back again and performing state.
I
Model will go back to the once you come back to performing
Exactly. That is why I asked my first question. Initially, if you heard that if you are knowing that there is a bloating there and the team is there, so how do you stay on schedule with the team wherein you do not lose faith of your team as well as you do not miss your deadlines?
That's one thing.
Can I pause both of you? Are you going to stay with us till the evening?
Yeah,
We're going to talk about that exclusively, right? Do we have more questions unanswered? You also have some those. Okay. There are sticky notes there. Feel free to take it and write those questions, and we will take it in the open house meeting. You have anything to add, Abhishek?
No, that's it.
Here.
Thank you very much.